There once was a man named Bhenji. He worked every day with one thing on his mind, spending his hours and minutes ranking his games. He didn't care whether they were long or short, easy or hard. And so here we sit at the edge of the world with Bhenji's top 100 games. Cry Havoc. Nope, not the absolute stone cold 1981 hex-based classic, but this asymmetrical area control delight of a game, setting 3+1 disparate factions against each other for supremacy. Each faction has really got its own distinct feel and playstyle to it, and each will help you spread your influence over the board or help you be favoured in combat. Speaking of which, the combat really is unconventional, but because it's something a little bit different and requires some real forward planning to get the best outcome, it's a definite positive. As if this wasn't enough, you've got some deck building and hand management in there to ensure no outcome is absolutely certain. The board scales nicely to player count, although the ability to play one faction, the Trogs, only at 4 players is an interesting design decision, especially as they get a real head start as a playable faction, but that shouldn't detract from the ambition and execution of this peach of a game. Bushido. And so we reach my first miniatures tabletop game. I couldn't possibly craft a top 100 games list without them, and this is one I've enjoyed for a good while. A skirmish game where you're controlling only a handful of models, and that's set in feudal Japan. You're only playing on a 2x2 board, and so this makes it a relatively small skirmish game, but it packs a lot of punch in that small package. This is a game that loosely incorporates some fantasy elements based on Japanese culture, just to add a bit more variety to all of the characters' abilities. This is predominantly an objective based game, and combat and dice rolling mostly revolves around opposing checks, where both players secretly assign dice to both attack and defence, and then damage depends on how successful you were in terms of the roll off. This is one of the first skirmish games I ever played, and it still gets to the table. Plus they just released a revised set of rules, so that's just cherry. Flashpoint Fire Rescue. On the face of things, my number 78 is a little bit uninspiring. This grid movement and action point allowance game sets you right in the heat of the action, putting out a building fire and rescuing those innocents trapped inside before the roof comes a-tumbling down. But dig a little deeper, get past the introductory rules, realise that not every game has to set the world on fire to be a pleasure to get to the table, and you'll be just fine. This is a nice and easy game to teach, and really does encourage you to work cooperatively to succeed at your mission. The different strengths and weaknesses of each firefighter really do give a sense of ownership and understanding of what each player needs to focus their efforts on. Furthermore, the way the fire spreads and the way explosions really do rack up the tension mean that this is a game that's hard to find any particular fault with. For that reason, this is never far from the shortlist of choices on game night. For sale. Ah, you little pocket-sized auction and bidding miracle, how simple you are, yet how gratifying it is to play you. It's a simple premise really. Phase 1, bid on a number of property cards with their inherent value represented by a number. The higher the number, the more valuable. Phase 2, flip those properties into the most money possible. Then the game ends. That's all there is to it. Why is such a straightforward concept so fun, you ask? Well, for me it's because it fits so well into any gaming session, largely as a filler game, but it also allows you to adopt an efficient winning strategy by playing the odds in a way that doesn't tax your brain too much. I need games like this in my life. They calm me, they make me happy, and just as importantly, they seem to make most people happy when they play this. Do we need more explanation than this? Methinks not. ETHNOS. This area control and set collection game is very much a gateway offering for me because it teaches both those mechanics and also drafting and hand management, all for the price of an absolutely easy peasy game to learn. It adds an accessible fantasy theme and a bunch of different factions that comprise the sets in the game. each with their own added abilities that add further layers to this lightweight title, and it accommodates up to 6 players. I'm not sure this would quite make my top 10 essential games, but it ticks so many boxes it would certainly be in the running. Really what gives this game its replayability and its solid ranking on my list is its disparate factions, each bringing a different nuance and approach for a playthrough, setting it apart from conventional set collection and hand management games and giving the game a real sense of identity. Ultimate Warriors. This is gladiator combat, baby, in a board game box cover. It literally sells itself, accommodating up to 8 players in a children friendly battle to the death. Each warrior you pick, be they big or small, stout or dexterous, will either be hard to hit but with few hit points, or a hefty, lumbering target that a cat without opposable thumbs could hit with a bow and arrow, but that takes an awful lot of effort to kill. The bare bones of this game is rooted in hand management and point-to-point movement, with some dice rolling in there to represent the attacks that you do. But it's really the hand management that shines, as you can only play each card once per game. Each given a varying degree of movement points alongside melee and ranged attack points. Each card also has its own initiative that will denote who goes in what order each turn. This is good, wholesome entertainment, especially for larger groups. Monolith Arena. From one arena game to another, this time with a little bit more complexity, comes a reskin of a game with a post-apocalyptic theme, Hiroshima Hex. Monolith Arena, however, comes in a fantasy setting with a few tweaks to the basic gameplay, but ultimately this is a game that feels very much like a scaled down skirmish war game. One with the added caveat that you have to point your army's units in the right direction and then let them do their thing. There are only so many units that have more than a front facing arc, so strategic placement and orientation is the only way to succeed. Each turn you'll only have access to finite units, and the game gets its name from the monoliths you have at your disposal, that outside of combat are stacked on top of each other, but once swords are drawn they'll spread out across the board. I love the chess-like feel of jockeying for position throughout this game, and each faction's different strengths just add further reasons why I love this title. Viticulture Essential Edition. Mon Numero 62 is a top tier worker placement game about owning your own vineyard, making wine and taking names. The copy in my collection is the Essential Edition that incorporates the favoured elements and modules of all content released for this to date. This is a slow burn of a game where you've got to really connect the dots between planting vines, turning it into wine and then storing and selling it to make the best use of your meagre pool of workers. This game boasts an exceptional turn initiative meter where if you want to go first and have your pick of worker actions, you'll have to sacrifice bonuses that the players that are prepared to be patient and go later in the pecking order will get. What you get with this edition is the most well-rounded game that this could be. It may not be my go-to worker placement game, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm always happy to see this at the table. Archaeology, the new expedition. I never could quite get my head around this. What's the new expedition? But that's the only thing that frustrates me about this borderline square set collection game, that's briskly paced no matter what the player count, and taps into the innate joy in buying, selling and trading your way to the most points. It is that simple a premise. You exchange cards value for value with those in the communal marketplace, and then you push your luck trying to get the largest set of that type of card possible. The reason it's push your luck is because there are thieves in your midst, which will allow other players to steal your cards, and also sandstorms that are pretty much guaranteed to blow half your stuff away. This is a great family game, one non-gamers would be more than comfortable with, and that's why I turn to archaeology a great deal. Dice City. Imagine a city full of dice. That would be all sorts of amazing. Although maybe I'd like to see some D20s in there, maybe a couple of D4s. Alas, you'll only have shades of D6 to entertain you in this here city. This city that makes you roll one of each colour dice and place it on the respective space for the number you rolled. So it's a little bit of dice roll placement, and then you use those dice generally to either generate the resource found on the space they're on, or manipulate your other dice by moving them on their respective row. Outside of that, it's a resource management game. You can build your city in a militaristic way, thereby gaining points from defeating local banditos and hindering the other players by disrupting their cities. Or you can focus solely on trade, whereby you try and generate as many resources in one go as you can and buy cards that give you points come the end of the game. All in all, a tidy all-round game. I do hope you've enjoyed my choices so far. Stay tuned for the next 10 games on my list. This video has ended.